This show is part of the HeadStuff podcast network.
This episode of The G-Spot is sponsored by Playblue, Ireland's favourite adult store. Playblue.ie has a huge selection of adult toys as well as some deadly deals. There really is something for everyone, no matter what bits you have or what you're into. Check out playblue.ie today.
I'm Grace Alice, I'm a sex and intimacy coach, and you've just found The G-Spot, my podcast with the HeadStuff podcast network. Each episode, I'll be chatting with a fabulous guest that you may know and answering your sex and relationship dilemmas. Nothing is off limits, so let's dive right in. So thank you so much for coming in, genuinely.
It's a pleasure.
So excited.
Yeah.
I thought you'd be a good fit because I think you're quite open.
Yeah.
Like from working with you before, you were straight into it, very comfortable, asking questions, like really just seemed at ease with the topic of sex.
Yeah.
And that's surprisingly not that common as you think it is, I think.
Yeah, I think it's good to be because the more open you are about it, the better when it comes to, general sex education, but also like people getting health checks when it comes to sex education. And it's something everyone does.
Yeah.
It's why we're here.
Yeah.
So it's always been weird to me how taboo-y we are with sex.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
So I've always kind of not made a point, but like been a bit Samantha Jonesy about talking about my sex life.
Yeah.
And because I know you're having sex, and I know
Yeah.
you're having sex,
Yeah.
and I'm having sex,
Yeah.
let's just talk about it.
Let's just talk about it. And it makes it so much easier then when you're talking about the good stuff, but also when something isn't working or like there's something, maybe there's an issue in your relationship or you've had a bad sexual experience, whatever it is, that like, if we're at least starting by talking about the good stuff, that's kind of an easier way in.
Yeah.
And then when there's something more vulnerable that we're scared to share, we might feel a bit more comfortable.
Yeah. And in my experience, if you talk about your sex and the good and the bad parts of it with your partners or your friends, it improves.
Yes.
100%. I know couples who wouldn't address things with each other and maybe their sex life suffers because of it. But the couples that are very open and honest about it, their sex life can improve.
Yeah.
And then also when it comes to sexual health, like STIs and stuff, I think I was a victim of not being taught about sex education because I got gonorrhea when I was 13.
Okay.
And I didn't know sex STIs existed.
Yeah,
I
didn't either at that age. Yeah,
so,
I had no clue. So on that, what sex education did you get? Like, did you get any in school?
My sex education was secondary. It began in secondary school.
Yeah.
I actually think it should begin in primary school.
Oh, it should.
Yeah.
Like staged, age appropriate
Exactly.
learning. Like they're not going to be talking about sex at like 6, 7, 8.
No.
But you're talking about your body.
Yeah.
Talking about how, just even the proper names for your body parts. Talk
Yeah.
about even a bit of consent, like how we interact with other people and being respectful.
100% boundaries, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I knew nothing in primary school. Then I was in, I went to secondary school, and I think it was in second year.
Yes.
One of our teachers, very kind of embarrassingly, he was embarrassed about it. Mortified. Brought in one of the wheelie video things, put it at the front of the class, said, "Now you're going to watch sex. You're going to watch something to do with sex." And I remember so clearly he was staring at the floor telling us this, which made us stare at the floor.
Of course.
And everything was just painful. And then there was, I can't remember the video itself, but I just remember it being very dated.
Yeah.
And another big part of it was just heterosexual sex.
Of course.
There wasn't a mention of the gays.
Yes, as Jesus intended.
Exactly,
yes.
And it was very much like penis plus womb equals baby.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
There was nothing about pleasure. There was nothing about STIs. There was nothing about anything else other than this is how to make a baby.
Yeah.
That's all I remember. And I think it was like half an hour and then the teacher came back in. And I remember towards the end, the other boys were getting quite giddy and there was just a bit of raucousness. Anytime an illustration of a vagina came on the screen, there was cheers and so it was just like a mess. It was an absolute mess. And that was it. That was absolutely it. And soon after, I remember getting with a guy maybe a year later or something, and gonorrhea happened.
Well, yeah,
and
but it
I
would.
never knew you could get it. Yeah.
So then, in the absence of like formal sex education, so getting it, say, in school or whatnot, like an actual program, we obviously learn about it then in different ways. Because I always say, like, sex is so natural, but that doesn't mean it comes naturally. Like, it is actually learned behavior, and we learn like all the norms around it and that, and we internalize a lot of that quite young, actually very young. And people, I think, sometimes are uncomfortable with the topic of anything to do with children and sex. And I'm like, we don't want children having sex. Like, obviously, children are, that's obviously completely wrong. That's not what we're saying. But your sexual development does actually start as a child, you know, even psychologically, like the messaging. So in the absence of like getting a program, how did you learn about sex? Like, what was the informal sex education you got?
I think when I was around probably 13 going on 14, I think, when the gonorrhea thing happened.
Yes, so that was an education in itself.
Yeah, it was a baptism of fire. I learned fast how stuff can happen. And I remember it was, I was brought to like a clinic, I can't remember where it was, and it was just, I was too young for that to be happening, but I just know if I had an education, I probably would have avoided that happening, you know? But anyway, I remember in the doctor's office, they had 1 million leaflets. And I remember reading them all.
Yes.
And kind of almost becoming obsessed with this world of making yourself healthy and aware of things. So it wasn't the best way to get a sex education, but it was very much me learning about it. My parents, God bless them, didn't want to talk about it either. They're from a different generation, and I respect that and everything. And my dad's words of advice were, no, just abstain until you're 18. That's all he said.
Even the word abstain,
Just don't do anything until you're 18. That was just, you know.
It's so funny, isn't it?
And I actually think, like, my parents, I love them to bits, but they've grown with me in terms of even like gay world stuff. And
so have mine.
And they've taught me stuff, I've taught them stuff, and now they're very woke, if you like, when it comes to a load of different topics and stuff.
Great.
But back then, they weren't. They just taught, you know, and from their point of view, it was sex after marriage type situation. That was their
100%.
generation. So, you know, their only advice, I guess, for me was just don't do a thing until you're 18 and that'll be fine. But they didn't, there was no sex education at home, if you like.
Fair enough. And that's the case, I think, for a lot of people, especially, well, in Ireland, certainly. I think a lot of us can relate to that.
Totally. And that's why I do think it needs to be a school thing.
Definitely.
You know, you learn about how the brain works. Why not about down there works?
Everything else.
Just how it is. So I got all the information from leaflets.
The leaflets.
And then also being part, around that time, timelines are so weird in my head, but like 15, 16 maybe, I started going to Belong To. Do you know Belong
To?
I
do,
a really great organisation for gay youth who feel a bit like a lost lamb, I guess. I felt a bit lost. The first school I went to, I got quite badly homophobically bullied. It was an all-boys school. This is another thing I think all schools should be mixed.
Here.
It doesn't make sense. Segregation doesn't work really ever.
From a social point of view, it doesn't. Like, there's arguments academically. Apparently, girls do better in all girls schools academically. And boys do better in mixed schools academically, which is interesting. That's a whole other conversation. But apart from that, but you know, school, technically it is an academic institution, but it is also where you're doing such key social development.
Huge.
And like, I went to a girls' primary school, and when I went to a mixed secondary school, like, I was obsessed with boys. Like, they were like a whole exotic, and like, stay to half them. Like, like all of us, the state of us.
Yeah.
But like, you know, they were just these exotic creatures and they could do no wrong in my eyes. I just had such a kind of, even from that age, kind of an unhealthy, like I didn't have that ease of having male friends or anything like that.
Well, I think that stat is always brought up that girls that do well in all girls school. I think we need to look at school as something that's just not about results.
Yeah, more holistic.
More holistic, because again, this might be me very generally speaking, but usually when I was younger, talking to other people who were in mixed schools, they're kind of more mature or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I find that from working in all across the board, girls' schools, boys' schools, mixed schools. The boys' schools, I will admit, I struggle with a bit more. It's not that I don't enjoy teaching. I've had fantastic experiences in boys' schools, but unfortunately, there might only be 2 or 3 lads in the class, but if they're loud enough and if they're saying really misogynistic, really homophobic things, I find that a lot of the other lads don't challenge them.
Yeah.
Whereas in mixed schools, this is just purely anecdotal, this is my personal experience, I do find there's more challenging going on.
Oh, big time.
It's less acceptable to just say something horrifically misogynistic.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's,
I found that the girls and boys diffused each other.
Yeah.
You know, there was less bitchiness, less kind of bravado, toxic masculinity vibes because each side was there to diffuse the other. And I even found as a young gaeling, I didn't get bullied in the mixed school.
Okay.
Because I think I had the ear of the girls and the boys knew that.
Yes,
so even from a very baseline thing,
yeah.
The girls protected me and then the boys didn't want to piss off the girls. And so it just worked out so well for like all parties.
That's so fun. That ecosystem, like, it's just so funny. Yeah.
So anyway, I started going to belong to, and I think being around other gays, we're all a bit freer. I think it maybe in comparison to heterosexual groups of friends when it comes to talking about sex, and you know, there's less boundaries or something. I think so. I learned more sex education from my new gay friends that I was meeting, and I think in gay world, you become very sexual health aware at a young age because. On one side, it's, you know, there's a lot of you'll get HIV and die, and there's a lot of
tactics,
misinformation around that. So you grow up thinking, I remember growing up thinking it's just an eventuality that you might get AIDS and die. You know, just from like all the hangover of all those horrible ads from the 80s and 90s, and the stigma around all that sort of stuff, when in fact it's nothing like that.
Yeah,
you know?
No, of course not.
So I learned a lot from other gays in my world about sex education.
Okay, well that's good that Belong To is there to offer that. And I often share those sports services with young people because it is great to have that space. You know, and I'm just thinking it's so full circle, because just going back to what you were saying about your parents in a different generation, like my mom always remembers that she was told, she's from Dublin and she was taught by nuns, I believe. And she was told, she was like, I'll literally never forget this, regarding sex, if you enjoy it, it's a sin.
Oh my God.
And like, I actually get angry if I go into too much, so I won't. Like, that just enrages me. Like, to tell young women that if you enjoy, not even about doing it, if you enjoy it, like, oh yeah, it should be painful and awful and you should just lie back and think of Ireland, you know.
Yeah, I think it's like a hangover from
that is
Catholic
it. Yeah,
days.
Yeah, it's going to take a while.
Because it's funny when you think of like ancient Rome or ancient Greece and how we've regressed when it comes to sex. You know what I mean? Like, it was even from I was reading about Caesar being a power bottom.
Oh,
Alexander the Great. And it was just they had like gay relationships and straight relationships, and everyone was a bit fruity. But like you know, sex was just another thing back then. It was not a shameful thing. It was an encouraged thing. They had gods about sex. Gods dedicated to the enjoyment of sex.
That's really interesting you mentioned that, because I think, and I'm not a historian and I have to look this up, but just from the reading I've done, actually Ireland pre-Christianity, before it was brought here, and we were, I suppose, pagans technically.
I'd say we love riding.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a very, I think, different attitude, and especially towards women as well, and the female body and menstruation and all that. And do you know the Sheila na Gigs, the kind of Irish sex goddess?
Yeah.
So I'm giving her that name. I don't know, is that her? I just think of her as, you know, a sexuality symbol. I'm like,
it was her day yesterday or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I think it's the 18th. I could be wrong. I think it's the 18th of March. But yeah, I'm like, we need to like look into all that.
Yeah.
Because that was all there before, you know, Christianity.
In ways we've come on as a world when it comes to technology, but regressed in so many other ways.
That's true. Yeah, it is.
I love ancient civilizations' attitude to sex.
Fascinating. Yeah. Now, there's a lot of stuff I'm glad has changed too. But
I'm
like
sure,
the stuff they used for contraception.
Yeah.
Worse than brown sheep. Yeah, all kinds of guts
and stuff.
And absolutely. On from animal intestines, we'll go into a dilemma, right? So, each episode we'll see how much we have time for, one or two dilemmas. So this one is called X Factor Fears. Okay, lots of alliteration. So I'm a gay man. So the writer is a gay man, 38 years old, and I've been in a committed relationship with my boyfriend for 2 years. I genuinely am so happy with him and feel lucky to have him, but there has always been one problem I can't shake off: his ex. They were together 4 years and, in capital letters, and his ex is an influencer with a big following. He's very handsome, to be fair, clearly very successful and seems to be adored by everyone. I know it's irrational, but every time his ex comes up in conversation or I see a picture of him on social media, I can't help but feel threatened. Him and my boyfriend had a civil breakup and still talk and sometimes meet for lunch/brunch, etc. to catch up. I feel embarrassed and childish saying this, but I worry that my boyfriend still has feelings for him or that he compares me to him. I'm an introvert through and through, not confident or charismatic in the way his ex is. I work in a boring job rather than an exciting career. I do trust my boyfriend, and he's reassured me time and time again that he's moved on from his ex and that he's happy with me. But no matter how much he tries to ease my fears, every time I see his ex, I just feel this drop in my stomach. If they continue to spend time together, I've this vision of him having a penny drop moment where he looks at his ex and will think, why did I let this relationship go? I don't want my jealousy and insecurity to drive a wedge between us, but I'm struggling to keep my emotions in check. How do I deal with these irrational fears and learn to trust my boyfriend's love for me, even in the shadow of his past relationship?
It's a loaded one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Am I the handsome influencer he's talking about?
That's it. They knew you were coming on. It's actually such a modern problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know, the idea of kind of having someone maybe in your periphery or circles that is a public figure, where, you know, years ago it would have been, I suppose, much less people were famous or had any kind of, I suppose, celebrity about them. Does that make sense?
I think like, you know, back in the day, you'd go out with someone and then maybe it would end and you'd never see them again.
Yes.
Or they'd get a new boyfriend or girlfriend and you'd never see that boyfriend or girlfriend. But now,
social media,
we're all stalking everyone.
Yeah.
And I have friends who have broken up with boyfriends or girlfriends, and they're now stalking their new boyfriend.
The new partner.
Partner or whatever.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily have to be a famous person or whatever to have your boyfriend doesn't have to have a famous ex in order to see them all the time. But I guess it's probably hard for this guy because he's popping up on the FU page.
Yeah, but that's
page.
it. And it sounds like this is the way he's saying, you know, I work in a boring job, I'm an introvert. It kind of sounds like, particularly, it's one thing having this ex in this relationship with the ex, but also the fact that the ex, he said, you know, seems to be adored and very successful. Like, it sounds like there's a compare and despair thing happening there. Obviously, you have a public profile and you've a big following. Like, what would you say with regards to people's assumptions, you know, about, you know, if I were to look at you and say, oh, he's obviously adored, really successful, he's confident, he's charismatic. I mean, you are all those things. But, you know, like...
I'm like, all true.
If I... You're like, dead on. I'm actually even better than that. But yeah, do you have any, because again, not a lot of people are in that position.
Yeah.
So is there anything you can say on that?
I think, what's that saying, comparison is the thief of joy.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that's true. Mm-hmm. I think no matter how much you have or whatever, you'll always want a little bit more, unless you're happy within yourself first.
Of course, yeah.
And I think there's maybe something there. There's a lot of, I'm in a boring job. So I think this guy needs to do work on himself first.
Yeah.
Like, to quote RuPaul, like, you need to love yourself before you can love others, you know?
Okay.
So I think it sounds like he needs to do a bit of work on himself. His boyfriend is still with him.
Yes.
He's not, you're the one.
Yeah.
He could leave if he wanted to.
Yeah.
So I think there's just, he's being too hard on the situation. He needs to kind of, I think, do a bit of internal work.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, I agree. And that's not, I know I can speak for you, is we're not being harsh on this person saying, you have to love yourself. Like, but it is, I think, what you say about there is some work to be done on self-acceptance and realizing your own worth, that like that relationship ended for a reason.
Exactly.
And even I think the fact that it ended civilly even shows that, sometimes when something ends in this dramatic fashion and someone has cheated or it has blown up, almost like a passionate breakup, that can nearly feel like unfinished business for some people.
Totally, that's so true. Actually, I never thought about it.
Whereas
that way.
when it's civil, it's like, oh, that's two adults
out.
deciding this isn't worth pursuing,
Yeah.
and it ended for a reason. He's with you for a reason, many reasons, I imagine. I'm wondering, like, I'm just saying, does it say it here? He's reassured me time and time again. Okay, so I am feeling a little bit for the boyfriend as well, because it sounds like he has to keep reassuring him. And it's okay, like, it's okay to need reassurance here and there. But when it's, again, a cycle of it, we need to look inwards a bit.
And you might end up driving a little wedge there between you if you're constantly almost nagging them to give you love back, when actually the love needs to come from within.
Exactly. You need to know what you're bringing to the table.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how much they've talked about this, but it could be possible that even his partner maybe struggled to be with someone who was a public figure, or like maybe there's a side of it that he was uncomfortable with, or it just wasn't for him, or that the ex could be a nightmare for all we know.
Yeah, exactly.
They could seem absolutely wonderful, but they could be like hellish to be in a relationship with. We don't know.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a nightmare to be in a relationship with.
We all are.
I'm the handsome influencer here.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. It's about you. It's funny because I'm obviously I'm a sex educator. And I think people have said this to me. I haven't come up with this myself. Like, they make assumptions about me that this can be done in a gross way of like, oh, my boyfriend's so lucky. He must be a lucky fella,
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're more than our jobs. And like any kind of social media usually page, even when we're being vulnerable and sharing stuff, it's still we're not going to be giving 100% ourselves. You still don't know, unless you're spending time with us, what we're like behind that.
Yeah.
So I could be a sex educator having no sex, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, being married to a chef and presuming that their partner is going to have feasts every night, when in fact, actually, chefs are famous for just having a bit of quick pasta before they go to bed.
And I'm shit at sex. No, I'm joking. But yeah, no, it's just interesting. And like, obviously, I'm on a much, much smaller level than what this person is describing. But even on this kind of micro level, I've even noticed that people project kind of stuff onto you and make assumptions, and just really try and stay away from doing that, because I'm big into like pop culture podcasts and celebrity autobiography. I'm like, show me all the messiness, show me the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And there's always so much more to a person than what we're seeing.
Yeah. I think for this guy anyway, he might start like manifesting problems that aren't even there.
Well, that's it. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Exactly. Sometimes, isn't it? Yeah.
I think this guy maybe needs to just have a conversation with himself first and be like, am I actually in a happy relationship, or is this a manifestation of some other problem that's actually happening, and he thinks this is the problem, the random ex that actually isn't causing any issues. Is there maybe a seed there that from something else that the relationship isn't working?
No, definitely.
Do you know? Because otherwise it sounds perfect. Yeah. It's not as if he's saying, oh, look, I found texts on their phone.
Exactly, something.
There's nothing there.
Yeah.
And the fact, as you said, quite cleverly, I love that if they ended civilly, there's no unfinished business there.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
It's
so maybe
adult.
actually this guy is kind of in the back of his head. Maybe he doesn't want to be in the relationship, which can sometimes be the way.
Yeah.
Sometimes people in relationships are projecting onto the other person when actually it's them that's unhappy or something.
Yeah.
Do you know?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Side note on that, being friends with exes, thoughts, elaborate, discuss.
I am not really that close to any of my exes. Mainly because I think a lot of my ex relationships, it ended in...
Not civilly.
Yeah, it ended in flames and stuff.
Okay, yeah.
So then I think that took away any sort of future friendship from it. But from someone looking, at someone else maybe, I think absolutely. If it works, it works.
Yeah. Depends on the context, doesn't it?
Exactly. Context is everything.
Yeah.
But now, I'm with my boyfriend 11 years, which is a lifetime, really.
Yeah.
But so that's 11 years since I've had other boyfriends, and if I saw them on the street now, I'd be absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah.
But I always think it's weird as well because, like, if you're with someone for a long time, a couple of years, it's so weird to then, after one day of a breakup, you just ignore them on the street. And it's that's someone you told your whole life to.
Yeah.
I do find that weird.
Yeah, it's just this sudden, huge shift in your life. And it's funny how quickly things change.
Yeah.
And I see that even in my work, even people separating, particularly with divorce, which is a whole other episode. But there's great intentions that we're all going to be very civil and adult about this, and we're all going to be reasonable, and I'd never do this, and I'd never hurt you. And then it's funny how when a bit of distance happens between the breakup, people can change.
Yeah.
So I think it's actually, I'm not friends with any of my exes really, but like I don't have a friendship with them.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be spitting on them at the street.
Yeah.
Like,
I do have a couple of friends in a wider friendship group that kind of had to be friends again because they started off as friends in a friend group, then broke up.
Yeah.
But they still all have the same friends, so they kind of have to get on in a way.
That makes sense.
For I guess it's like politically,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, the wider good, the bigger
exactly.
group. Also, just to even add to that, mute, stop looking at him. Stop looking at the influencer.
I think that works.
Like, it does. Like, it won't do the inner, because if this person, and no shade at all, we all have insecurities. When I say someone has an insecurity, it's not a read. I'm not trying to, be hurtful. We all have them. This person's insecurities are significantly impacting his life and his relationship. So that's when the issues start to happen. It's not really the ex that's the problem. It's, as you said, what's being projected onto this. So muting them isn't going to fix that inner insecurity, but it will help.
Exactly.
In not constantly dragging your brain down that thought.
Yeah.
Train of thought.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know, trying to give up cigarettes. It's better if they're not in the room.
Yeah.
Or, you don't see other people smoking.
Well, that's it.
So
that's when I want to smoke, is when everyone else is outside having a smoke.
So I'd say, as you said, maybe mute the person and work on yourself. Because I think this is a reader problem rather than the other two people involved.
Yeah. I have a lot of people muted, and I've nothing against them.
Yeah.
But, there's certain people that I'm just like, you're doing great. You're not doing anything bad to me, but there's something about you, whether it be your career or whatever is happening, that it's my brain is going into this compare and despair. And that's not your problem, that's me. And I'm just going to support you from afar and going to mute you.
Yeah.
I think we can do that with exes. Yeah, exactly. And thank God you're doing great. But yeah.
But I am a fan of the mute thing for people. If you ended badly with your ex, they broke up with you or something, you're still kind of in love with them. It's a really good idea. Any friends I've known who have done it, it's just a great step to try and get over someone.
Yeah.
It's like whack-a-mole. You don't want to see them like coming up in your face the whole time.
Try to stop comparing yourself. Try to remember, as we said, ended for a reason. There's a reason your partner is with you. Try and focus on that. And, God forbid, and I always do this way because I do sex relationship coaching. I'm like, what's the worst case scenario? He leaves you for this person. Let's just go there for a second. Worst case. What happens? you're going to deal with it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It's going to be shit.
Yeah.
If it happened. But your life is not, no one's going to fall off the earth. The sun doesn't spin. The earth will keep spinning. Maybe the sun does spin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The earth will keep turning. Like, and I'm not minimizing it. It would be incredibly hurtful, possibly even emotionally traumatic, but you would be okay. I think there's a resilience piece for a lot of people when it comes to insecurities, is actually we need to see our insecurities, kind of welcome them a bit, talk about them. Where does that come from?
Yeah.
But ultimately realize that, if the worst thing happens, we will be able to cope.
You'll be grand.
You will cope.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's no other, you have to cope. You will cope.
Yeah.
So.
He could try murdering the influencer.
Yeah, always, that would be a great Netflix documentary eventually.
Yeah.
I get asked all the time for sex toy recommendations, and I know the choice out there can be very overwhelming, so I like to only recommend what I have personally enjoyed. One of those toys is the Satisfyer Pro 2 Plus. Honestly, I've never met a Satisfyer toy I didn't like. They are good quality and they are good value. And this particular toy is my pick this week, as it has both the air pulse suction effect as well as vibration. So if you or your partner has a clitoris, try out this toy and thank me later. You can get yours from playblue.ie and you can save 10% by using the discount code GRACE10. Enjoy!
This is a good one. It's called Disconnected Desires. Hey there, I'm a 35-year-old woman recently out of a relationship, and I'm currently having my first ever no strings attached casual sex friends with benefits thing. Okay, He's a lovely guy and I do enjoy the sex to an extent, but to be honest, it's not great. And I'm disappointed because I kind of assumed casual sex would be fun and easy and exciting, but it feels a little flat. He doesn't do anything wrong that I can put my finger on. He does what most women would want, I think. Spends loads of time going down on me, lots of foreplay, makes sure I have an orgasm, etc. On paper, I know that all sounds great. I probably shouldn't be complaining, but it feels like he isn't fully present during sex, almost like he's always somewhere else in his head. He physically puts in a lot of work, but he often has his eyes closed and seems very focused. Sex can be pretty silent at times, not much communication, and I really love to be talked to. I don't want to make him feel bad, but I can't help feeling frustrated and unfulfilled. It's like I'm craving this deeper sexual connection with him, but he's just really focused on the physical acts. How do I put into words what it is that I would like done differently? And how do I communicate my needs to him without making him feel inadequate or seeming like a spoiled pillow princess with notions? Can I just say there is nothing wrong with being a spoiled pillow princess with notions?
No, and
absolutely not.
No, be the pillow queen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also feel like if you're having like this kind of fun fling, friends with benefits type thing, that should be the fun sex.
Yeah.
All sex should be fun, actually.
Yeah.
But like that should be definitely the one where you can really let loose and tell each other how you feel and tell each other to do this and tell each other to do that.
Because the stakes are lower.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So I would, I'd go full throttle into, this is where communication is just the key of life when it comes to anything, but especially sex, to be able to say, actually try it that way, or maybe we'll do it that way, or maybe play a sex game or something along those lines. But I think if she just simply tried to have a conversation about different things, what you're definitely the expert when it comes to this.
Yeah, it's something I've experienced myself when I was single, and it's something I hear a lot, and it's just touching on so much. So this idea of him putting in physically lots of work, I get that, and I get the appeal of that, right? Because, we know there's an orgasm gap there, and straight women are having less orgasms than anyone of any other gender and sexuality. And there is something there regarding, actually, we should care about our female partner's pleasure. And, again, maybe that sometimes involves putting in a bit of physical work. I'm using work in quotation marks. But it sounds like, when she's like, oh, on paper, he's doing everything right. I'm like, yeah, but again, all I'm hearing is a physical act.
Yeah.
And there's there's space for that. Touch me here, touch me there. This is how I like to be touched or whatever. That's great. But there's an erotic part missing.
Yeah.
You don't have to be in love with someone to have emotionally connected sex. And I think what's missing here, and it's something I talk about a lot in my work, is sometimes they're called core desires. Sometimes it's called the core erotic feeling. There's different terms used for it. And it basically means that, so when I have sex with my partner, it's not just about the physical act, because I could give myself an orgasm in literally 2 minutes. Like, you know, it's not just that. It's I want to feel desired. I want to feel, this is me personally, I'm not speaking for all women at all. I want to feel desired. I want to feel beautiful. I want to feel wanted. I want to feel pursued. Like that's the kind of stuff that turns me on. If someone's there with their eyes closed, like pumping away, that's not going to make me feel seen and desired and those things, right? So there's that emotional, and when we say emotional sex, people often equate that with love. I'm not on about love at all.
Yeah.
Love is great, but it doesn't have to be there for great sex. And talking about that erotic part of you're touching on something inside me that is emotionally fulfilling, not just physically.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, because you can have the most emotionally connected sex with a one-night stand.
But that's it.
Do you know, compared to someone you're with for 5 years.
Yeah.
So I fully agree with all that.
Yeah.
And I think a conversation is just what needs to happen.
Yeah.
You know? I know she says I need to put into words, but that's literally, she's almost answering her own question.
Yeah, how do I put into, and obviously I can never give exact wording.
Yeah.
But I would say a good way to approach these conversations is start with the positive. Start with, look, you're a great lover, you're a great sexual partner. Like, you know, I love when you do A, B, and C, whatever it is, right? Starting with something that is genuinely positive and saying, just for me, something that really turns me on and really satisfies me is when you say this phrase to me during sex, or when we make eye contact during sex, or, you know, I can't, again, she has to fill in the blanks herself of what she actually likes. And, you know, I would encourage her to think about the fantasies she has, think about good sexual experiences she has had where she has felt those core erotic feelings, and come back to that.
So it's almost like asking for something with a positive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a feedback sandwich.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah.
Now, some people are way more direct. I just personally know that a lot of people don't respond to that well, because sex is an intimate thing.
Totally.
We can be quite sensitive. You don't want to, make someone feel like they're really being criticized.
Yeah.
Because it's not his fault. He's probably doing what he thinks is the right thing to do.
Exactly.
He's like, I'm going down on her, I'm giving her, I'm helping her have orgasm. Like, they're all great things.
Yeah.
So we need to give each other like nearly not just a physical roadmap of, I like to be touched here, I like to be grabbed here, whatever. We also need to give a more, like a deeper, like, again, erotic kind of. I love the word erotic, but it's so misunderstood, even the word. Like, erotic is where the mind meets sex.
Yeah.
And that's so important.
And maybe there's stuff he wants done.
But that's it.
Do you know?
Maybe I'd say if he's closing his eyes, I would guess he could be having a little fantasy, or there's something going on there that he needs to, unless he's literally just closing his eyes and like focusing on getting the job done, which is just, for me again, and obviously for this person, it wouldn't do it. For some people, that could be actually the turn on in itself.
Yeah.
You know, is the disconnection of feeling, maybe it could be feeling used or feeling submissive, or there's so many different, again, things we can tap into.
Yeah. I think if she maybe approaches it like talking about her favourite things about sex.
Yes. Yeah.
And then asks him, what's your favourite things about sex? Oh my God, let's try that.
Yeah.
And then it's a more like workshop type activity.
Exactly.
And then that almost adds a new element into their little fling that they're having, which is kind of exciting. I think very simply, both of them talk about their favourite things when it comes to sex and go from there.
Go for it.
And suggest other things as well. Because it does seem very fresh and exciting what they're going through. So I think they're just missing an extra layer, which is just the communication.
No, definitely.
And you're so right about that. You can't just be like, look, you're shit at that. Can you do it this way or whatever? No, because someone is giving giving their whole body to you.
Exactly.
And so I think being nice to someone and fluffing up, I guess, the feedback.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I actually was talking to someone recently, and she was having a casual sex thing, and she sent, which I love. She sent what did she send him? It was either
feedback form. Like, that's different.
Do you know when you're going out to the bathroom in an airport and you hit the smiley face?
Big green button.
Yeah. It was either an erotic audio, audio erotica, like as opposed to visual porn that we watch,
Never
audio
heard this.
porn. Oh my God,
like
it's
a voice
brilliant.
note.
No, well, there are voice notes. So there's these apps, and they're becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's basically you listen to, it could be a sexy story, it could be someone just moaning, it could be you're listening in on two people having sex.
And is it real voices?
Yeah, it's actors.
The actors?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, I'm sure there's people who do it genuinely and sell
yeah.
it, but it is actors as far as I know most of the time. And you can request Irish accents or
No
British
way.
accents.
Paul Mescal's accent, please.
Side note, yeah, so the Irish accents are huge. Like one app is Dipsy. It's really well known. It's absolutely blown up. And I was listening to an audio story one day, and it's like he's talking, his name's Killian, of course, it's so funny, but he's talking to you, right, in this one, and I was like, okay, let's see what this is like. And I was with it until he said, "Aren't you a fine thing?" And I was like, I actually just turned it off. I was like,
I'd kind of love that.
I'm gone. No, I know. And he kept saying, darling in the thing. And I was like, this was written by an American, but that's fine.
Oh my God, gas. Top of the morning to you. Is that a pot of gold down there? You're just happy to see me.
I can't. How did I get on? So yeah, anyway, this lovely lady sent your man. Yeah, this is the Irish audio. You're one over. She sent either an audio erotic story thing to him, or she sent him an erotic book, I think, that she likes. It was something, and he listened to the whole thing, and he came back and he was like, oh, okay, so you're into this. And I was like, oh my God, we need more of this. We need more of just sharing what we like, what we're into, even if we're not sure, being like, I think I might be into this.
Yeah, exactly.
And for someone to receive that as not a criticism, but as actually it's a gift. Like they're telling you, they're giving you that map. And that's what you need to be a good sexual partner for someone.
Yeah. And I think everyone's a little bit more exciting than they let on.
I think
when it comes to sex,
I like
the sexual
to think
world.
that.
Oh, I definitely do.
Do you think so?
Chatting to my most conservative pearl-clutching friends, they can be a little bit wild. Yeah, test it out. Try it, push the boundaries a little bit. Chat.
Yeah.
Communicate. You never know what you're going to unravel.
And do you find the pearl-clutching friends, do they tend to be straight?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting because like I've had this conversation, like my best friend is a gay man and we talk so openly, and obviously I'm very open and not a lot shocks me or whatnot.
Yeah.
But we have been in situations where he'll be on about something he's done, or even maybe I am, and we'll have a friend being like, and like they're just kind of looking and they're trying not to react, but they are, and you're seeing it in them. And to us, and this isn't just being like, oh, we're just so kinky, but like, to us it seems quite like normal and like that it's not a big deal. But people even, can be horrified.
Even to some of my pearl clutchers, they're you can tell they want to hear more.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Stop, go on.
Yeah.
Or whatever,
I know.
And again, I'm not here telling I'm cartwheeling naked around someone's bedroom or doing something wild. It's just like slightly more than the usual.
Yeah. Because I think even the definition of what is vanilla is changing. And by the way, vanilla is great. Like have vanilla sex all you like. Jesus, it's great.
Best selling ice cream.
But that's it. Yeah. It's a favorite for a reason. But I think it's just that bit of sex positivity, isn't it? Is just realizing that just because something doesn't work for you doesn't mean it's wrong that other people enjoy it. And that sounds so basic, but I still come across this attitude all the time. And something I was on about recently on Instagram was that someone was asking, is it normal to specific, but see a hot guy at the gym and fantasize about having sex with him, even though she's in a happy relationship? And I was like, oh, of course it's normal. It's also normal if you don't do that. But it's very normal. The brain is very sexually motivated. And fantasy is a safe way to, have a little exciting thing in your mind that you don't want to actually do, let's say.
Yeah.
And oh my God, some people were not happy with that.
Are you serious?
Yeah. They were like, you're normalizing what is not normal.
They're definitely having weird fantasies.
Well, I was like, there's something, you're protesting too much now, and it's like, again, it's just a fantasy.
Just human as well to think that way and go there in your brain.
Of course.
So they're just liars.
I think so. And I think there's a fear there. And look, it's not that right. So say if my partner was going to the gym and fantasizing about having sex with other girls, personally, would I want to hear? Maybe if I'm in the right mood. But generally, I'm probably like, you know what? That's for you.
Yeah.
You keep that. You enjoy that. You don't need to know about all my ins and outs of fantasies. Yeah. I don't need to. And that's fun. And that's healthy.
Yeah.
No one's cheating. No one's breaking the what's the word? Kind of agreement within our relationship, like our boundaries. Yeah.
But that's, like you said, not everyone's the same.
Exactly.
I have friends that are in open relationships. I have friends that are completely against that type of thing and delighted with it, and they just like having their own circle, and they wouldn't talk about other hot people or whatever. But say for me and William, we're always like, oh my God, look at that ride coming down the road. Yeah. Like that's just how we are. But I totally respect other people who 100%. Don't like that. I've actually a gay couple friend that are quite conservative. You know? And then I have a straight couple friend over there who are wild. So it's everyone is so different. That's Absolutely, the beauty of it.
And that's where sex positivity is again. Yeah. It's just recognizing that diversity, and you do you, I'll do me, and we just respect each other.
Yes, exactly.
That's it. I'll finish with one last question. I'm kind of coming a bit full circle, but at the beginning I had said you seem quite open, which I'm really... Obviously, I love to see it anyway, but especially as someone, who has a big following, who is a public figure, like, has that been a process for you being more open in what you share, what you talk about? Because again, you just seem like, like that, you just chat away as you should. Like there seems to be no shame. You're very open.
Yeah.
Like, do you ever get I suppose my real question is, do you ever get pushback on that? Have you ever had negative experiences with that, or has it all been really positive?
Do you know what? I've kind of almost closed up slightly in recent years.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I shared bit too much at the start, maybe.
Yeah,
I guess just the fact I'm getting older and stuff, I am getting a little bit more closed.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is maybe the opposite of how it usually happens. But I was very I on Snapchat is how it began, and I'd talk about absolutely anything.
Okay. Yeah.
I worked with Durex, I think, for one of my first campaigns back in like 8 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's sex and even talking about drugs or, all sorts of everything that comes with life. I wouldn't have any sort of issues with. So I've always just been very open, and it's worked for me, I think, because I think if you put everything out on the table, there's nothing, everyone, they can basically see what you have to offer and take it or leave it. So I've just always been a very open person, and for some reason it's worked.
Yeah. I think people connect with that.
You attract your tribe then.
Well, exactly. Yeah, because some people with me as well, they're like, too much. Too much, she's sharing too much, or she's too... And I don't think I am, to be honest, but, people might think, oh, that's a bit vulgar, that's a bit, I don't want... And that's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's genuinely, absolutely fine.
Yeah.
No,
all my cards are on the table.
Well, that's it. Me too, I think I'm very open book, to be honest. Again, sometimes probably have been a bit too open.
Yeah. I've even found from, I guess, just being as me as the most me as I can be, I've lost followers or I've gained followers or whatever, and I find that the following I have now is a very almost distilled following who just really likes me for me, which is so nice, rather than, there's other people out there, I think, who put up a very polished version of themselves or hide bits about themselves or hide, and that's fine, but I've just there's not much I don't really have many secrets. But I think, to go back to your question, have I ever gotten any negative stuff? No, I haven't. Good. And I think that's testament to just being open and being upfront about your likes and dislikes and your interests, and when it comes to talking about a topic like sex or whatever, I've never gotten anyone saying, oh, that's a bit much or whatever. So I think it's a a sign maybe that we should all be a bit more open and honest.
Yeah, no, it is absolutely. It's funny. Sometimes I notice, I don't know why, it's usually people I know because I would see their names following and unfollowing me. I think it's really interesting. I think sometimes I'll post something, they'll be like, oh no.
Yeah.
And then they'll come back a few months later and I'm like, that's actually fine.
Yeah.
You know, you might just be sick of me for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, and finally, is there anything that you would say if young James were to walk in here and he was, say that you were 13, did you say, when you had the
14,
and you just kind of have the shock of, oh my God, I've gonorrhea, and you're just starting to read your leaflets, whatever, right? Is there anything that you would like to say if you had 60 seconds with him regarding sex, relationships, intimacy?
I think it's not as scary as you think it's going to be, and it's not as doomy and gloomy as right now you're thinking it's going to be, because I thought my life was kind of over when I got gonorrhea, even though I took some medication, I was fine then.
Gone,
but I think I was scarred by the experience, scarred by being told don't do anything until you're 18, and this is I remember the wall of scary leaflets, and I just remember thinking, this is what I associate it with gay sex as well. I was like, this is what gay life is going to be now, just doom and gloom and scary, when actually it's been absolutely fab and amazing. So I think I just reassure me that it's absolutely going to be, in 1 week actually you're going to be fine.
Exactly.
But to be honest, it did scar for a couple of years.
Of course,
I became a bit of a virgin, if you like, for quite a while, because I just thought abstaining because I just thought and do you know what, it was actually the first person I got with as well.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, typical. So I just kind of did up my zip then for a couple of years. But I think I probably starved myself of any sort of potential intimacy or whatever for quite a while, because I spooked myself too much. So I would just say, relax. Yeah. You're going to be grand in a week.
Yeah. You're going to be grand in a week. I love that.
Yeah.
Perfect. No, that's a really good message. Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. I think your insights were brilliant on all the dilemmas. We did 2, right? 2 dilemmas.
Yes.
Do you want to just tell people where they can find you?
They can find me on OnlyFans. James Allen Kavanagh on Instagram.
I was like, is that an exclusive announcement that you joined OnlyFans?
Yeah. If I had an ab, I would be there.
Yeah.
If you're enjoying the G-Spot, please rate and review, and check out our bonus content over at HeadStuffPodcast.com, where I delve even deeper into all of these juicy topics. If you would like your dilemma answered on the pod, please email me at info@gracealice.com or send me a message through my website, gracealice.com. It'll all be kept anonymous, of course. Thank you so much for listening. Please find details of relevant support services in the show notes.
A huge thank you to PlayBlue, Ireland's favourite adult store, for sponsoring this episode of the G-Spot. You can browse through their impressive selection of toys, lingerie, and lots more sexy essentials at playblue.ie.
This show is part of the HeadStuff Podcast Network, a hub for the creative and the curious. Shows are produced in association with HeadStuff and the Podcast Studios Dublin. Find out more or become a member at headstuffpodcasts.com.